There we are. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our first honors colloquium of October. Very exciting. Today, we are very pleased to be welcoming one of our colleagues, our Jiao, who is assistant professor still.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Hopefully,
One more
next year.
year.
There it is. The professor. Next, here I am.
They make the video. They didn't make the video for extra 3%.
I made a cartoon,
You made a cartoon.
a very poor cartoon.
25 time.
Stunt man, stunt man.
So truth matters and as the social science scholars, what is we find compromise and the shared beliefs and values and norms has been transmitted across the two ways for transmission, vertically from parents to children, also horizontally to influence with value and attitude. And also
right at
and the values. But in economics, the study has not been studied until recently. We kind of heavily focus on quantitative analysis. How do we study and how do we quantify cultures? So it's a matter of kind of question, right? And I have put several very study. Those are the pioneer study and it gets me into this area. If you are interested in study anything related to cultural and economic impact or behavior, feel free to reach out to me. And this is one of the best people actually I have. You can tell from his last name, Chen. He's also Chinese and he's the immigrant and he's from the UCLA. And he's been taking the position of chief economist at Uber for several years. And what he noticed that he actually noticed there are two sets of language structure. One is actually like English. So it separates, English it separates past, present, and future tense, right? We range more. So remember that the first time I studied English, I'm struggling with the grammar. Because I'm always use futureless language that's very common in China, in Chinese and also Germany. So German, they don't differentiate past versus present and the future tense. How does it actually impact for the mindset? You're thinking of this one actually showing. The top one is showing that for the future language structure, people actually treat the future a little far away from today. When they actually value what's their leisures and consumption today, they put some heavy weights on their current consumption. But what about the futureless language? To us, next year maybe as weights as the same important as this year. This is kind of shaping our mindsets and how it's going to be shaping our behaviors. It's translated to for the individuals living in the futureless language, mostly in the Asian countries, they save more because they care about their future investment in terms of they're accumulating more retirement assets and wealth. And they actually tend to have the healthy behaviors, smoke less, and exercise more. I think that's kind of fair, right? And I still do the Asian squat sometimes, and even though during the pregnancy, my mom was being amazed. And I'm still squatting as I can. And also, that's not for the main for the exercise because it's my body. Yeah, and also we actually have a better preposition for the future. I think that's kind of interesting if you are willing to know the paper I'm willing to share. Oh.
You might have to use the arrows. That might be easier.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
And no, I mean, only interested we are interested in knowing how is the culture shapes behaviors. We're also interested in knowing what can shape culture, such as gender norms. They are actually tracing back to the agricultural practice. How this one is kind of plow use. So the plow use, there's a feature with that. They heavily focus on the upper body and the grip strength. And man to man as the primary agricultural workers and placing women as the homemaker. So this gender division is actually going to persist until nowadays. Even this kind of way of agricultural practice has been ages some years ago, right? But this gender division has been persist until now. And for some countries have very long history of cloud use culture. Men as being the breadwinner and the women is more like stay at home mom. So this gender division persists. And also we notice that the gender gap in terms of labor force participation and the gender pay gap is also being not noticeable in those countries.
No, maybe not, sorry. I tried.
And this paper is very related, most closely related to what we are doing here. They find a way to quantify family ties. I have a question for you. When it comes to family tie, what does that mean to you? Any questions, any answers?
The relatives.
The relatives, how close bondness between family members, right? So actually say yes, that's right. There are two ways to actually. So that's the close bonds between parents and children, so also the relatives. So weak family ties actually emphasize more great independence, and they are more reliant on the broader social institutions. And once that's actually they find a way to quantify, I'm going to mention that later. They find a way to mention that stronger family ties leads to a lower political participation, including running for office, voting, and campaign exercising rights and freedom. Why is the reason for that? Because if people actually they are rely more on family support, they tend to rely less on the government support or the public support, right? They're less likely to form the political activities stay outside of family. So that's the reason. In the last one, I will be showing that. Oh, going back. Last piece of evidence.
Seems to not want to go the wrong way there. There we go, almost.
No.
Come on.
See. Oh,
Almost. There we go.
all right.
Okay.
So this last piece of evidence I'm going to show that trust also not only influence individual behaviors, also links to economic development. Such as trust. How do we measure trust? What do you say? How do we measure trust? If I'm going to ask you, hey, I'm going to give you some project and ask you to measure the trust, how are you going to do so?
How comfortable I am making that request to that person.
That's a good way. So that I think you're actually leading toward to sending survey to people, right? Asking people's opinion, saying, how generally do you think people surround you be trustworthy? Something like this one. Or how do you think you are trusting the people, relatives, neighbors, and other people, right? That's exactly this paper is doing. They are taking the survey as the same data sets we're actually using in our paper. By measuring the generalized trust, and then that link that to the economic development, it shows that positive, if a society have a high trust level, it tends to have a high economic growth. Why is that? The trust actually lower the transaction costs. They reduce the needs for initiating the contract and also monitoring the process of doing business. And also kind of makes the cooperation easier, extending beyond the family members and the relatives. So they also encourage for the innovations and doing their own business. So as a result, the study shows that society with a higher trust, it tends to have a stronger institution and also the better governance of the firms in terms of the financial assets and financial corporations. And then they all lead to a sustainable economic growth. All right, so why I'm interested in this topic? One of my dissertation chapter in PhD, I'm focusing on the family economics, which is a very kind of not the mainstream of economic development. But you think about it, everything, family is a fundamental social institution. A lot of things has been studied and determined within a family. So one of the things I noticed that before I came to the US, I didn't know that a lot of stay-at-home moms, that is back in 2008, a while ago. I'm old. And another reason I noticed that's because of taxation system. US a joint tax. But trying in a lot of Asian countries, we file tax, even though we are married couples, we file tax individually. It doesn't matter how much the husband earn, you have to file your own taxation. So I'm actually saying that, hey, whether it is the taxation system affecting spouse or labor supply decision. Why is that a reason? Because women have to stay at home because of the maybe childcare responsibilities and also the tax they are paying. If they're working, maybe they're paying more and putting the family incomes in the higher brackets, right? So that's all the reasons. Family to determine how husband determines to work, and also their spouse determines to work. So that is actually drives me to why studying economics of the family is very important. So we are doing in this paper, we're trying to establish a link between the strength of family ties to the social welfare programs. While we focus on the social welfare programs, they provide supports such as education, health, and financial stability and food security to vulnerable families. That's very important. And how do we measure family ties? We follow the other two Alcina and Giuliano paper in 2010 by looking at the support value survey data, tracing back to 1981 all the way to 2022. There are 3 questions we took to construct our measure. The first one is by looking at family importance. And then they survey people how important your family means to you. They range from 1, not very important, all the way to 4, very important. And how respectful each individual is to their parents. Whether their parents earn the respect, low value of families, or in some countries, as you remember, your parents have unconditional authorities over you. So in those countries, as you remember, my dad says everything. My dad is kind of the rules in my family. I used to be like that. It was used to be like that before I was actually turning 18. And also family duties, where parents putting the well-being of their children before them, who's the prioritize their well-being or their children's well-being. So we rated them, we coded them in a way that, so the higher the value is, meaning that the stronger family ties this country is. And we have 2 ways to measure that. The sum of variables. I will skip this one. Unless you're interested in working with me, I will teach you this, how to code that. But if you are interested in knowing this topic, reach out to me. I will share some of the important, very interesting papers. I think that's very interesting to me too. And maybe to Craig as well.
Yeah, sure. I usually stay away from things with numbers, variables, but
All right, so this one shows I listed the samples in the countries in our sample. So I believe we have 111, I think, some numbers, countries in total. And then we standardize them relative to the value of United States, somewhere this is here. So we're going to see that there are a bunch of numbers, they have a lower family ties relative to US. The lowest one is the Czech Republic. And there's a bunch of numbers, the countries, they have a higher, stronger family values relative to the US. The highest one is Egypt. And this is actually showing that we have a large number of observations in terms of across country. And showing this map, I created this map. I know it's fancy, right?
That's good. I like it.
Yes. I'm showing that there's some geographic variations. And the color being very purplish represent the higher value. And if we come into the yellowish, and up here and there is kind of, they have the weaker family tie. Question here, which countries? I'm surprised this Japan.
Yeah.
Is that right? I was surprised by the number because maybe because of the who answered the survey. We actually seen that we have upcoming papers in. Maybe the survey is not a good way to measure family tie, but putting all in very generous stuff.
Right. Does that also account for why there's not very many responses from Western and Central Europe?
That's right. So in the first one, we show the cross-country evidence. We link the family strength of family ties. So remember, the higher the number is, the stronger family tie. To the coverage, the welfare coverage. We look at several things. People who have disability in the disability, receiving disability benefits. And people who are employed and receiving the UI benefits. And at least they are in one of the welfare programs. And this one is whether they are receiving social assistance benefits. So you see that's the negative correlation, right? What comes with a stronger family tie value, they are less likely to participate in this program. That is the cross-country analysis. But the thing is that it shows the correlation. In economics, in economies, we are crazy for correlation. So we need to find a way to do things better. We restrict our analysis to 7th-generation immigrants in the US. Why do we do that? Think of this one. A lot of countries, we were focusing on the previous analysis. You're going to see, hey, countries have different institutional legislation, right? Maybe some countries have more generous welfare programs than the other country. That's contributing to this negative effect, right? We are not controlling that in this one. But if we restrict our analysis to everyone who was born and raised in the US, facing the same institutional kind of settings and legislations, we can tease up the factors, kind of external factors influence. And then focusing on, there's only one thing's influencing participation in the welfare program, the values, especially either internal value transmitted from parents or horizontal value transmitted from their parents. And we are using the current population survey data from 1994. That is the first year they start to collect their parents' origin, country of origin, and all the way to 2023. That is the most recent data we got. And we not only we define for the 7th-generation immigrants as long as they have one parent. So because we're actually going to see that. We're also doing that, whether their parents are from the same country of origin or not, whether maybe their one parents are from, such as me, if I'm not me, my husband is from Malaysia, so me is not an example. My friend actually, she was married American, so she's the foreign-born parents, and her spouse actually native. So for those, just the children, their child are the 7th-generation immigrants.
I really love it that way. I guess my kids would qualify. My wife was born in England.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
They qualify too, yeah. Yes, economics we love models, and not only we are doing actually two things: cleaning data and building models, and coding. That's the third thing we're doing. So every day, it's very interesting numbers.
Zoom person who would like to get in as well. Sorry.
Appreciate that.
Okay. This is one of the things that scared me off. Economics, not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Patience and such. But
I know there's a lot of people get scared by it. That's a beautiful formula. So linear algebra from your class, right? So we're interested in knowing this beta. Beta shows the correlation between SFT, strength of family ties, and also we are measuring the welfare, the probability of in the welfare program. If you are receiving any respondents receiving the TANF, EITC, earned income tax credits, UI benefits, and social security insurance, and Medicaid, SNAP, such as food stamps, they are considered as taking a value of 1. So this is measure the probability of an individual in the welfare programs. So if beta is positive, meaning that a higher family ties increase the probability. If beta is negative, so meaning that for stronger family ties, decrease the probability. Does that make sense, everyone? So from our previous, we suspect in the hypothesis that the beta is negative, right? So we tested based on the data, and voila, that's what we find. So, but based on 2 of our measures, we find a negative correlation between family type, higher, stronger family values, lower the probability person is in the welfare programs. I guess, I think from everyone's face, you're gonna see, why is that, right? All right, so before that, we are breaking it down into several different groups of people by looking at different demographic characteristics, such as by gender and their age, and how long their parents stay in the US, and whether their parents from the same country of origin or not. We measure family type based on whether their mom's country of origin, such as your mom, and not you. Why is that? Because mom has a huge influence on shaping children's value. Mom is the one doing the primary cares for the children, right? So I believe mom has a huge influence, a higher influence, a larger influence, a little slightly larger influence. Slightly larger influence than children. So that's what we see here. Daughters compared to sons, their value has been strongly influenced by their mom's value. So it's been the vertical transmissions. It's actually sustained here. So this effect, the negative impact, is stronger for daughters. That makes sense, everyone? We're also looking at, this is kind of a little bit hard to explain, but I need maybe your help. So we break it down into respondents' age, the younger groups all the way to senior groups. We see that the impact is more noticeable and prominent for the senior groups of people. So I believe this one can be related to the last one. I still have I'm gonna have to be honest, I'm struggling with explanation for this one. Why? Well, such as the younger people, and especially for those between the prime age or working age population between 18 and 30. Well, this one's become positive in that if they are from the stronger family type, they are more likely to be in the welfare, right? And it's very different from the other age groups. So what? So we're actually finding explanations for that. And we call this heterogeneities in economics, heterogeneous effect. And then the next one, we separate how long the parents been staying in the US, because the longer we suspect they're staying in the US, their connection to the country of origin, their values will become diluted, is that right? Because they are more similar to the US people, is that right? So what we see here, for the most reason, new immigrants, their parents, their values are heavily transmitted to their children. So those values are even more negative compared to the longer immigrant. And then in the next one is, if their parents are from the same country, their values are strongly transmitted to their children as well, compared to their different country. Now, this is the mechanism. What's explain our results? So we actually suspect, we hypothesize there's 3 factors can influence how strong family ties to the participation in the welfare programs. Well, the first one is thinking of family and the outside support. They are substitutes. If you heavily rely on the family support, you are less likely to need the government support, right? So self-insurance and family support is one of the explanations to explaining why higher, stronger family type to reduce participation in the welfare programs. That is one reason. And the other reason is for stigma. Maybe you think for some countries to say, hey, we're seeking out for the external supports being stigmatized. I'm not going to do that for the family. So the stronger family type, the countries with stronger family type, they are exhibiting a stronger or heavier stigma towards the public service. And also for the last one, for higher family type, they maybe lower the employment rates. You're going to see that if you lost a job, and if you know that everyone is supporting you in a family, what are you going to do? Even when looking for jobs, right? You need to find a job. My family will support me regardless of what, right? So it's going to be leading to a lower employment rate, putting you more likely to apply for the welfare program. So this is kind of there are 2 negative impacts, 1 positive impact. So based on what we see is we find that this negative impact always the positive one. Now, in the next step, we need to find a way to examine and quantify them. How do we quantify the first channel, family support? Going back to this current population survey data, we're looking at three things. Whether the kid is co-resident, they're living with their parents, and also what's the size, if they are actually living together, how closely they are. And also caring about, there's another samples, there are another data sets, American time use data. They calculate, they're recording the time spending, each people spending with their family member and based on each activities, such as how much time you spend on caring family members, how much time you do in the housework, and how much time you spend phoning and calling your family members. All those represents the stronger family connections, all right? So what do we find? For those individuals, second generation immigrants, if they are from a very strong family ties, so they form a very close family support system. So we kind of supporting our first mechanism. And for the second one, stigma, we are still working on that. And we actually looking for another GSS data. I just bought the data, I think, a couple months ago. It's very expensive. I paid $1,500 for 3 years of use, the restricted use for that data. But it's actually gives us a lot of the information about how people being, their opinions towards the welfare programs, whether the government should support the poor, and how is the income distributed among different people, whether the government's roles in that. That's a very nice data. So in the last one we tested, still going back to the CPS data and American time use data, we find, yes, if an individuals from the stronger family type, they are less likely to be in the labor markets. So meaning that, and they spend less time in working. So it's actually saying that they are more likely to seeking for help for the welfare programs. So what do we do? You know, maybe about chat.
You're fine. You're good to go.
So what is actually what we are doing in this one? So we study what's the value, the family values across different generations affect the welfare use, actually take up rate. So people from, as I mentioned, people from countries with stronger family ties are less likely to be on the welfare programs. And we identify at least 2 channels out of 3. So family support, if they actually form a very close family tie support systems, they are less likely to need the government support. And also, on the other hand, if they are from a very stronger family tie, they are more likely to be unemployed and less likely to be in the labor markets. So that's increased the need for them to seeking for public assistance. So that is pretty much what I'm doing. So I'm actually bringing different ways and bringing new elements to economic studies by saying, okay, economics and sociology and psychology go hand in hand.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Jiao. Well done. All right, you do have some time for questions or comments, clarifications. I'll open it to the group first. Go through the conference, so. Not all at once, one at a time.
So on the graphs you were talking about, the positive value is like above the line is more likely to be relying on welfare. Is that what the graphs were?
Which one?
So the one that you were saying you were having a hard time explaining.
Yeah, the one where in the age.
The age group.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That one, so the positive values are more likely
To be independent, is that right?
So they're less likely to use the policy, the programs if it's above the line?
And the above the line is more likely.
Oh, more likely, sorry.
Below the line is actually correct.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't understand why for those between 18 and maybe that's your groups of people, right?
college.
Yeah.
College, maybe, I think this groups of people more interactive with their peers probably, especially with the native people. They got influence from native people, say maybe stigmatized and not an issue, maybe they have more education. It could be.
Yeah.
Also gonna ask, what nations is this graph focusing on?
This one is based on every second generation immigrants in the US.
The US.
So they're actually still the US citizens, but their parents are from different countries. Their parents are foreign born.
One of them is small.
At least one of them is foreign born, yeah.
It's good. I actually had a question on the data itself. You mentioned it was a survey.
It's
David?
a survey there.
So who did that? Was it a
The
organization?
workers, right?
Yeah, like who actually gives that out, or is that a non-governmental organization, or like who issues the survey?
This one?
Yeah.
I think it's non-governmental issues, yeah, so they actually hand it out that, but that's a huge grant, I believe. Because they have, in total, they collect the data from 147 countries.
Like 40 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Other thoughts, questions?
Did you say you're looking into who actually takes the survey and how that impacts your data?
Yes.
Who actually takes it?
Yes, I think that's very important, and we're also looking for another measure such as the kinship based on the blood. But it's actually measure different things, right? Because based on here, it's more like how the parents' value affects you, but the kinship maybe just based on the relatives and other things, right?
Sam.
So how does this factor into generational poverty?
That's a good one. It could be maybe because people, if they are less likely seeking for the public assistance, maybe putting them in a bad spot, right, for getting out of the poverty. So I think that could be something next topic we're doing. How does the family tie related to the intergenerational poverty rates? Yeah, that's a good one. If you're interested, yeah, and study for that.
Any other question? In that case, we'll say thank you again. Feel free to grab more of the very small cups of pizza, as many as you like, I don't mind. If you haven't signed in yet, please do so, so that we can see who is here. And thank you, my friends on Zoom, for that. I hope all was good. Where is the? There it is. Report.